Have you ever wondered why some older men command respect the moment they enter a room, while others make people uncomfortable without meaning to? This isn't about looks or wealth. It's about behavior. Small patterns that signal something deeper, something that makes others instinctively step back rather than lean in. Today, we're exploring 7 subtle behaviors that undermine your presence. More importantly, we're uncovering how ancient Stoic wisdom can transform them. If you're committed to personal growth, this matters. If you want to be someone people genuinely respect rather than simply tolerate, stay with me. Let's begin. The first behavior is neediness in conversation. This shows up in ways you might not recognize at first. Fishing for compliments by downplaying yourself so others will contradict you. Seeking constant validation through repetitive questions about your ideas. Over-explaining your achievements to prove your relevance. Monopolizing discussions to demonstrate your worth. Steering every topic back to your expertise. Here's what's happening beneath the surface. You're signaling that your self-esteem depends entirely on external approval. Your sense of worth fluctuates based on how others respond to you, and people feel that pressure. They feel the unspoken demand that they affirm you, validate you, make you feel significant. It's exhausting for them. Marcus Aurelius wrote something powerful about this in his Meditations. He said that our worth comes from within, not from the opinions of others. He was literally Emperor of Rome. He could have demanded validation from everyone around him. Instead, he wrote privately about the importance of internal standards. He understood that the moment you need external approval, you've given away your power. Think about it practically. When you meet someone who constantly needs reassurance, how does it feel? You can't relax around them. Every interaction becomes a performance where you're expected to play a supporting role in their self-esteem maintenance. Now contrast that with someone who's genuinely comfortable with themselves. They can receive a compliment without fishing for more. They can handle criticism without falling apart. They contribute to conversations without needing to dominate them. Which person do you prefer being around? The Stoic approach is different, and it's surprisingly liberating. Ground yourself in internal values that don't require constant external confirmation. Speak when you have something meaningful to contribute, not to hear yourself talk. Listen more than you talk. Genuinely listen. Let your actions demonstrate your character, rather than announcing it repeatedly. Here's a practical exercise you can start today. In your next conversation, count how many times you redirect the topic to yourself. Just notice it without judgment. Then practice asking 3 questions about the other person before you share anything about yourself. See what happens. You'll notice people become more engaged, more open, more comfortable. This shift changes everything. People relax around you because there's no hidden agenda. They're not performing for you. They're just being. And in that space, genuine connection becomes possible. The second behavior is touching without awareness. This one requires complete honesty with yourself. Some men don't realize how their physical presence affects others. Standing too close during conversations, invading personal space, the unnecessary hand on the shoulder when making a point, lingering handshakes that go on just a beat too long, hugs that weren't invited or clearly welcomed, touching someone's back or arm while passing them. Now here's the difficult truth. This often comes from genuine warmth or old social habits formed decades ago. You might remember a time when these gestures were seen as friendly and open. You might have good intentions, truly, but context has evolved. Personal space matters more than ever, and your intentions, however pure, don't erase someone else's discomfort. Stoicism teaches us to be rigorously conscious of our impact on others. Epictetus emphasized respecting the autonomy and boundaries of other people. He wrote that we should treat others as we find them, not as we wish they were. That includes respecting their comfort zones, even when they differ from ours. Here's why this matters philosophically. The Stoics believed in living according to nature and reason. Part of that means recognizing that other people have their own internal worlds, their own sense of safety, comfort, and personal boundaries. Your desire for connection doesn't override their need for space. Let me share a scenario that might sound familiar. You're at a social gathering. You meet someone new, have a pleasant conversation. You reach out to touch their arm while making a joke, emphasizing your point. You notice a subtle pulling back, a slight stiffening. In that moment, you have a choice. You can dismiss it, tell yourself they're being oversensitive, or you can acknowledge the signal and adjust your behavior. The Stoic choice is always awareness and adjustment. The solution is simple, but requires constant vigilance. Notice body language before you move into someone's space. Are they leaning in or leaning away? Are their arms open or crossed? Are they making eye contact comfortably or looking for an exit? Wait for clear reciprocation before initiating physical contact. If someone steps back, respect that distance. Respect physical boundaries as you would want yours respected. Think about times when someone invaded your space. How did it make you feel? Uncomfortable, probably. Maybe even unsafe. That's what you might be creating for others without realizing it. Here's what's interesting about this shift. When you give people space, they often move closer by choice. When there's no pressure, no expectation, no boundary violation, people feel safe. And safety creates the foundation for genuine connection. Practice this starting today. Stand slightly farther back than feels natural to you. Keep your hands to yourself unless touch is clearly mutual. Let others initiate contact if they want it. You'll be surprised how much more comfortable people become around you. The third behavior is age-based entitlement. This appears as expecting deference simply because you're older, dismissing younger perspectives without consideration, using phrases like "back in my day" to shut down conversations, demanding respect without earning it through current actions, treating your age as automatic authority, interrupting younger people because you assume you know better. Here's the Stoic reality check, and it's humbling. Age gives you experience, not automatic authority. Years lived don't equal wisdom gained. Seneca warned explicitly against confusing longevity with virtue. He watched men in Rome who lived long lives but learned nothing from them. They simply repeated the same mistakes for decades. Time passing doesn't make you wise. How you spend that time does. Think about this carefully. Every generation faces unique challenges that previous generations didn't encounter. The world changes. Technology evolves. Social structures shift. Economic realities transform. What worked in 1985 might not work today. And refusing to acknowledge that doesn't make you principled. It makes you rigid. Here's a difficult question for self-reflection. When was the last time you changed your mind about something significant because of what someone younger taught you? If you can't remember, that's a warning sign. It means you've closed yourself off to growth. The Stoics believed in lifelong learning. Marcus Aurelius, even as emperor, constantly sought teachers and mentors. He thanked them by name in his writings. Some were younger than him. He didn't care about age. He cared about truth and wisdom wherever he found it. Epictetus started as a slave. He had no formal authority, no age-based respect. Yet his wisdom transformed Roman philosophy because he focused on timeless principles, not hierarchy. The moment you stop learning, you stop growing. And the moment you stop growing, you become increasingly irrelevant. Not because of your age, but because of your attitude. Here's what age-based entitlement really signals to others. It tells them you're insecure about your current value. You're clinging to age because you don't have recent achievements to point to. You're using calendar years as a substitute for continuous development, and people see through it instantly. Practice intellectual humility starting now. Ask questions with genuine curiosity, even to people decades younger, especially to them. Value ideas based on merit, not the age of who shares them. When someone younger presents a perspective you disagree with, pause. Ask yourself if your disagreement comes from wisdom or simply habit. Are they actually wrong, or are they just different from what you're used to? This makes you someone people want to be around regardless of generation. Young people will seek your perspective because you respect theirs. Older people will appreciate your openness because it's rare. You become a bridge between generations rather than a barrier. The fourth behavior is misreading social cues around attraction. This is perhaps the most uncomfortable to discuss, but it's critical. Some older men mistake politeness for romantic interest. They confuse professional courtesy for personal connection, friendly conversation for something more significant. This leads to inappropriate comments that create massive discomfort, unwelcome advances that poison the entire interaction, persistent attention after someone has politely declined. Let me be direct about what's happening here. You're seeing what you want to see rather than what's actually there. The Stoic principle here is accurate perception. See things as they actually are, not as you wish them to be. Marcus Aurelius practiced this discipline daily. He would describe objects in bare, factual terms to avoid emotional distortion. A purple robe is just sheep's wool dyed with shellfish blood. Strip away the prestige and status, and you see reality. Apply this to social interactions. Most exchanges are simply neutral human transactions. Someone being kind at work is doing their job. A barista being friendly wants a good tip, not a date. A smile is often just a smile, nothing more. A woman listening to you talk isn't necessarily interested in you romantically. She might just be polite, or trapped in the conversation and looking for an exit. Here's the painful truth many men need to hear. If you have to wonder whether someone is interested, they're probably not. Genuine interest is rarely ambiguous. It's clear, consistent, and reciprocated. When someone wants to spend time with you, they make it obvious. They initiate contact. They respond enthusiastically. They create opportunities to see you again. Anything less than that is likely politeness, and you need to accept it as such. The Stoic approach requires brutal honesty with yourself. Train yourself to accept surface interactions at face value. Someone was nice to you at the grocery store? They were being nice. That's all. A colleague laughed at your joke during a meeting. They were being collegial. Nothing more. Focus on building genuine friendships without hidden motives. Stop viewing every interaction through the lens of potential romance. When you stop projecting desires onto neutral situations, something remarkable happens. Your relationships become authentic. People trust you because there's no ulterior motive lurking beneath the surface. Women, in particular, can relax around you because they know you're not going to misinterpret their kindness. That's actually when real friendship becomes possible. Here's a practice to implement immediately. Before you interpret someone's behavior as interest, ask yourself 3 questions. 1. Have they explicitly expressed interest in me? 2. Have they initiated contact, or am I always the one reaching out? 3. If this person were a man, would I interpret this behavior the same way? If the answers are no, no, and no, then you're misreading the situation. Accept that reality and adjust your behavior accordingly. This isn't about becoming cynical or closed off. It's about becoming accurate, and accuracy creates better outcomes for everyone involved. The 5th behavior is dwelling on past glory, constantly referencing old achievements as if they're still current, talking about who you used to know decades ago, bringing every conversation back to your peak years, living entirely in nostalgia instead of engaging with the present, name-dropping people from your past as if those connections still define you. Stoicism addresses this directly and without sympathy. The past is beyond your control. It's literally impossible to change. Epictetus taught that the present moment is where your power lives. Not yesterday, not 20 years ago, but right now. When you cling to former status, you're admitting something important. You're admitting you've stopped evolving. It signals that your best days are behind you. And here's the harsh reality. People can sense that. When someone constantly talks about who they were, the unspoken message is clear. They're not much now. Think about how this lands for others in conversation. You're talking with someone, and they mention for the third time that they once had lunch with someone famous, or that they used to run a company, or that back in their day they were quite successful. What's the subtext they're really communicating? That they need you to see them through the lens of their past, because their present doesn't speak for itself. It's a credibility borrowed from history, because they can't generate it currently. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He was emperor, the most powerful man in the known world. Yet his private writings reveal a man constantly focused on present virtue. He didn't rest on his position. He asked himself daily if he was living up to his principles in that moment. The alternative is to remain relevant through current engagement. Develop new interests that challenge you. Learn skills you've never had before. Stay informed about the present world and its complexities. Build something now that matters, even if it's small. Let your past inform your wisdom, not define your entire identity. Here's what this looks like practically. Instead of saying, "Back when I ran the department, we did things differently," try this. Say, "I've noticed that approach before. Here's what I learned from it." What's your experience been? See the difference? One positions you as stuck in the past. The other positions you as someone with useful perspective who's still learning. When someone asks what you do, don't launch into a 20-minute explanation of your career history. Talk about what you're interested in now, what you're learning, what you're building or exploring. That makes you dynamic rather than dated. Here's an exercise for self-awareness. Record yourself in conversations this week. Just audio on your phone is fine. Then listen back and count references to the past versus engagement with the present. If past references dominate, you've identified something to work on. The goal isn't to never mention your history. It's to ensure your history serves the conversation rather than dominating it. Your past should be a resource you draw on, not a refuge you hide in. The sixth behavior is emotional volatility. Sudden mood swings that others can't predict or understand. Overreacting to minor slights or perceived disrespect. Taking everything personally, as if the world revolves around you. Visible frustration when things don't go your way. Snapping at people over small inconveniences. This behavior creates an atmosphere of unpredictability. People walk on eggshells around you, never knowing what might set you off. They start managing your emotions for you, which is exhausting. The Stoic masters built their entire philosophy around emotional regulation. Not suppression, which is unhealthy, but management, which is wisdom. There's a crucial difference between the two. Suppression means ignoring your emotions, pretending they don't exist. That leads to explosion eventually. Management means feeling your emotions fully, then choosing your response consciously. Seneca wrote extensively about anger. He called it temporary madness. He watched how it destroyed relationships, reputations, and even empires. He noted that no one ever regretted responding calmly, but countless people regretted what they said or did in anger. Marcus Aurelius had perhaps the most stressful job in human history. Emperor of Rome during constant warfare, plague, and political upheaval. Yet his writings reveal a man committed to emotional discipline. He would remind himself daily that people are going to disappoint him. They're going to act selfishly, ignorantly, and carelessly. Rather than being surprised and angry when it happened, he prepared himself mentally. He chose his response in advance. Viktor Frankl, though not ancient, captured this Stoic truth perfectly. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space lies your power to choose. That space is where your character lives. Anyone can react emotionally. That requires zero skill. Responding thoughtfully requires mastery. Here's why emotional volatility is particularly problematic as you age. Society expects older men to have achieved some wisdom and self-control. When you haven't, it's especially jarring. It signals that decades of life experience taught you nothing, that you're still controlled by impulses like a teenager. Younger people look at you and think, "I don't want to become that." Instead of being an example of growth, you become a cautionary tale. Practice pausing before reacting, starting today. When something triggers you, count to 5 before speaking. In those 5 seconds, ask yourself a simple question. Will this response improve the situation, or just make me feel better temporarily? Usually, the answer is clear. Here's another practice that Stoics used extensively. At the end of each day, review your emotional reactions. Where did you respond well? Where did you overreact? What triggered you and why? This isn't about beating yourself up. It's about building awareness. You can't change patterns you don't recognize. When you become emotionally stable, you become a source of calm for others. In a chaotic world, that's incredibly valuable. People are drawn to those who can remain centered when everything else is falling apart. Your stability gives them permission to relax. That's a form of leadership that has nothing to do with position or age. It's pure character. The 7th and final behavior is making others responsible for your happiness. Expecting people to fix your loneliness through their attention. Demanding that others entertain you when you're bored. Placing the burden of your emotional state on those around you. Becoming upset when people can't drop everything to spend time with you. Guilt-tripping family or friends for having their own lives. This is perhaps the most draining pattern of all, because it turns every relationship into a job. People stop wanting to be around you because interaction feels like obligation rather than choice. Stoicism is crystal clear on this point. Your inner state is your responsibility alone. No one else can make you happy. No external circumstance can provide lasting contentment. That work is internal, and it's yours to do. Marcus Aurelius faced this reality as Emperor of Rome. Despite unlimited power and resources, he understood that peace comes from within. He could command anything he wanted, yet he wrote about the importance of self-sufficiency and inner calm. He knew that external circumstances are unreliable. People disappoint you. Situations change. What you have today might be gone tomorrow. The only stable foundation is your own mind. Think about what it feels like to be around someone who makes you responsible for their happiness. They need constant reassurance. They take it personally if you're busy. They make you feel guilty for having other priorities. It's suffocating, isn't it? Now consider how you might be doing this to others without realizing it. Do you get upset when people don't respond to your messages immediately? Do you feel abandoned when friends cancel plans? Do you expect others to fill the void of your boredom or loneliness? If yes, you're placing an unfair burden on the people in your life. The solution is to build a rich internal life. Develop hobbies and interests that fulfill you independently. Reading, learning, creating, building, exploring. Find practices that center you. Meditation, walking, journaling, whatever works. Cultivate genuine curiosity about the world that doesn't require an audience. When you're whole on your own, something transformative happens. Your presence becomes a gift rather than a demand. People enjoy being around you because there's no pressure. You're not extracting value from them to fill your emptiness. You're sharing your fullness with them. That's the difference between neediness and generosity. One takes, the other gives. Here's a practical way to test this in your own life. Spend a full weekend alone intentionally. No reaching out to others. No complaining about being alone. Just you with yourself. See what comes up. If you're uncomfortable, anxious, or desperate to connect with someone, that reveals dependency. If you can find contentment and even joy in your own company, you're on the right path. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort to build resilience. This is a form of that practice applied to emotional self-sufficiency. These 7 behaviors share a common root, and recognizing it is crucial. They all stem from losing touch with your internal compass. When you don't have a strong sense of self that comes from within, you seek it externally. You need validation because you don't validate yourself. You touch others because you're uncomfortable with distance. You demand respect because you don't respect yourself. You misread cues because you're desperate for connection. You live in the past because your present feels empty. You're emotionally volatile because you haven't done the inner work. You make others responsible for your happiness because you've abandoned responsibility for yourself. Every single pattern is a symptom of the same problem, an external locus of control instead of an internal one. Stoicism offers a practical path back to center. It's not about becoming cold or distant or emotionally shut down. It's about becoming genuinely strong, comfortable in your own skin regardless of circumstances, aware of your impact on others and adjusting accordingly, respectful of boundaries because you respect yourself, emotionally regulated because you understand your own patterns, continuously growing because growth is the point of living. The older man who embodies these Stoic principles doesn't need to announce his value. People feel it naturally through his presence. He creates ease in interactions, not tension. Respect flows to him because he respects others first. Trust builds around him because he's consistent and predictable in positive ways. This isn't about perfection. No one achieves perfect Stoicism. Even Marcus Aurelius, who wrote the book on it, struggled daily with these principles. His meditations are literally him reminding himself over and over to practice what he knew was right. The goal isn't to become flawless. The goal is to become aware and committed to growth, to catch yourself when you slip into these patterns, to course correct rather than justify, to improve incrementally rather than expecting transformation overnight. Here's what that looks like in daily practice. You catch yourself fishing for compliments. Instead of feeling ashamed, you simply stop and redirect the conversation. You realize you violated someone's space. You acknowledge it internally, step back, and adjust your behavior. You notice yourself dismissing a younger person's idea. You pause, reconsider, and actually engage with what they're saying. You start to misread someone's friendliness. You check yourself with those 3 questions and accept the reality. You begin telling an old story for the dozenth time. You catch it mid-sentence and shift to present engagement. You feel anger rising over something trivial. You breathe, pause, and choose a measured response. You start to feel lonely and reach for your phone to demand attention. You recognize the pattern and choose self-sufficiency instead. This is the work. Not grand, dramatic transformation, but small, consistent adjustments. Over time, these adjustments compound. They become habits. The habits become character, and character determines how you're remembered. If you found value in this exploration, consider subscribing to this channel. We dive deep into practical Stoic wisdom for modern men seeking genuine growth. Not surface-level motivation or empty hype, but real philosophical tools that have stood the test of 2,000 years. Leave a comment sharing which behavior resonated most with you, or which Stoic principle you're working to embody in your daily life. Real transformation happens through honest self-reflection and community support. There's no shame in recognizing these patterns in yourself. The shame would be in recognizing them and choosing to do nothing. Until next time, stay mindful of your impact on others. Stay committed to continuous growth, and remember that the path to becoming better is always available. You just have to choose to walk it. Every single day, one step at a time. That's how lives change. That's how character builds. That's how an older man becomes someone truly worth respecting. not because of his age, but because of who he's chosen to become.